This is Albright with another Tech Talk, and I am joined by Bob Tamburri from Ashley Audio. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. We did not get a chance to hook up at Infocom to connect. But you guys showed off an FX series amplifier at Infocom, as well as a number of other new products. But first, let's talk about the FX. What makes
hmm
that different than the other kind of compact amplifiers that are on the market?
Yeah, well, as you point out, there's quite a lot of those types of amps on the market today, and many of them are network. But we went a step further, and we added a wireless access point on the amplifier. So in addition to wired LAN connections, we can also do wireless, and very conveniently, just connecting directly to the amplifier. Don't need a switch, don't need a router, and that makes it real easy to access for end users. So if they want to communicate with the amplifier via their smartphone or tablet or PC anywhere in the room, it's real easy to do. So we gave it that level of easy connectivity. It also has probably a bit more advanced DSP than many of the smaller amps. Many of them don't have DSP at all. It's important to note, but the ones that do, we go a little bit further than most. The speaker DSP is a little bit more advanced. We incorporate, for example, FIR filters in there, so it really allows you to fine tune speakers and do proper speaker management. And that actually ties into the fact that we will be producing a library of speaker presets that can load directly into the amplifier that work with our range of loudspeakers that Ashley provides. And it expands on our already pretty big family of amplifiers. I have to say, with the addition of FX, we have probably the largest selection of amplifiers in the industry.
Talk for a second about that DSP. When Ashley Audio looked at this amplifier, the FX series, what was the thinking behind embedding or putting a DSP directly into the amplifier?
Well, good question. A few years ago, we introduced FA, and FA is a similar type of small range of Class D type amplifiers. And it was always our plan from the beginning to expand on that lineup and add DSP and other features to that. So it was kind of a natural progression in terms of how we would grow that series. But basically, it was to add another layer of control and capability within the series so that it gave you higher rack density. You wouldn't be having to add other pieces,
Mm.
another equipment to the system. It basically put all of that, and it's something that Ashley's done for quite a while. It's We're not new to the concept of one box solutions or multi function amplifiers. Many of our amps for many years have incorporated DSP and other features that you don't find on a lot of amplifiers. So this is sort of in the Ashley tradition of putting DSP in amplifiers, sort of kind of a natural thing for us to do. But having said that, it adds the additional functionality. We think it provides easier setup. You're not having to do extra connectivity. And of course, it gives us the ability to do easier upgrades. So as we come up with new features and things, it basically just allows us to add those via firmware or via upgrades, and so that makes adding on or expanding the system much easier for the customer.
Oh, absolutely. And as you add more speakers to your line, obviously adding those presets and stuff would through a firmware upgrade.
Right.
Absolutely. Really quickly, because you mentioned something there, and you beforehand you talked about the networked amplifier, which again, networked amplifier is something that's pretty commonplace in the industry. But the Wi-Fi access, right, the wireless access point.
Mhm.
What was the thinking behind that? It was making sure that regardless of where the amplifier is, that you could have connectivity, or what was the thinking behind the wireless part?
Well, right. Well, with so many people using their personal devices these days, in fact, since COVID, that's become more commonplace since it's become almost a requirement in many applications where rather than using controllers, hardware controllers on a wall, or things that are hardwired, it's become almost a preference to use your own personal device. So the fact that you have easy access to those controls without having to do any connectivity. I don't want to have to sit there and fish for cables and try to figure out how to connect to this. Just turning on Wi-Fi, finding the amplifier on your network and saying connect is a much easier process than the typical thing. Now that doesn't fit all applications. We also gave it LAN connectivity, of course, and in some IT managed systems, it's going to be more than likely a preference that they're going to want to do customized LAN connections and static IP addressing and things like that. So of course it does that as well. But for the casual user, for someone who maybe has this in their small retail shop or restaurant, it just makes connecting and control much simpler.
All right. You also had a number of upgrades to the AW series line of speakers. First, let's talk about the dealers and how those upgrades and those changes impacts the dealers.
Right. So we introduced the AW series of on-wall speakers a few years back, pre-COVID, and it was our understanding that it was going to be for some of the larger deployments and primarily for kind of low volume, sort of background music type applications. But as more dealers started getting their hands on them, they started approaching and they really liked the sound of the speakers. They started using them in larger systems and really wanting to play them at louder volumes.
Yeah.
And so for distributed audio applications, we needed to upgrade the transformers in those to be able to handle the higher power and higher sound pressure levels. So that was one reason, basically giving us the ability to address the larger types of implementations. But as we also designed AW and our other speakers as well to work with our range of subwoofers, adding the more powerful capability also put them a little bit more in line, made them a bit more compatible, sort of on a more even keel with the subwoofers. So playing both of those at kind of similar sound pressure levels became a lot more doable. So there's a lot more. There's a more robustness to the speaker line now than when we first introduced it.
So talk about that robustness because depending on the space that the customer has, right,
Mhm.
will determine on which kind of direction they go with that. What is the ideal area? What is the ideal installation for this new line of AWA? Are you looking at large venue? Are you looking at you mentioned restaurant and hospitality earlier? What is the ideal kind of installation area for these?
It sort of depends on the model. The range is there's four speakers in the range. We start with these little cubes, which are sort of like audio spotlights. Those kind
Yeah.
of lend themselves to small shops, retail shops. They get used a lot in kiosks, information kiosks, and they're great for little corners and places where you want to just throw a little sound. Not high power. They're not really designed to blast, but really kind of just play sound where you need it. As you go up the line, you get into the larger ones, and especially the transformer equipped models, which are the 5-inch and the 8-inch models. Those are more background and even foreground applications. And in addition to places like bar restaurants and larger retail stores, those get used also, and we see people designing these into places like houses of worship and auditoriums, and they use those for fill-ins, for example, under
Okay.
balconies and in along aisles and places like that. Or as you get into some of the Gothic style houses of worship with columns in their highly reverberant environments, it's become a common practice to place the speakers more local, kind of distribute them around the place. So their size really lends itself to that, mounting them on a wall and just covering a small area, but using a lot of them deployed around the place.
Yeah, those cathedrals and those Gothic installations, you're spotlighting audio basically at that point and leveraging the ability to do that with those smaller speakers. Absolutely.
Right, right.
Bob, the industry in general is moving more towards software. A lot of audio companies have software development teams. They're releasing their own software. Ashley Audio obviously is no stranger to that as well. Um, Ashley has invested a lot of resources, money, and people into the software side. What's been the kind of the driving force and the why behind that?
Mhm. Well, of course, coming off the legacy of our Protea software, which has been pretty long lived, we had quite a successful run with that, and we continue to support that. We felt it was definitely time to kind of go to the next level, figure out where our software development wanted to be. And our Aqua Control platform, which is our new platform, um, is quite a departure in terms of how it connects and how it works. We actually borrowed heavily from our legacy platform, so we kind of kept it familiar. So we have a large fan base out there who like the Protea platform. So we didn't want to change too much of the good stuff. We kept that. And at the same time, so we migrated all that over, but at the same time, we expanded on it and worked toward making it a much more intuitive and much more universal platforms. One of the things is that Aqua Control is now a web-based platform as
Mm,
opposed to a Windows install. So it's all basically open your browser and connect. And FX works very similarly, but the Aqua Control platform opens up our customer base to all kinds of users. Whereas before it was pretty much strictly the Windows customer. Now the Mac folks and people who are using Android and Apple, mobile devices, I mean, pretty much anybody can work with Aqua Control. So it really does widen our opportunities with different types of customers. And on top of that, it allows us a much greater degree of control and connectivity that we did not have with a Windows-based platform.
really quickly, you mentioned browser-based control and connectivity there. I have to ask: is there a specific browser, or is it just regardless of what browser you want?
Theoretically should work with any browser. We've thoroughly tested it with the more popular browsers, so Chrome, Edge, Safari. Those are probably the most widely used, and so those we've pretty we vetted those pretty well, and so I think we have it covered. And others we'll probably get to work on in the near future. But so far, people seem to be pretty happy with the support of those browsers, and we've done pretty well so far with that.
When you look at your software kind of division or the software lean from Ashley Audio, what's been the biggest payoff for the company or even for the users?
Well, again, I think it allows us to approach a different customer. Over the years, when we were strictly a Windows based application, many of the folks came to us and especially as Apple started growing in popularity, we had a lot of those folks coming to us and saying, "Hey, are you going to develop, an Apple a version of the platform?" And of course, as you probably know, that takes a lot of resources and a
Yeah.
lot of work. So it was felt that working on a web based sort of platform, it kind of killed two birds with one stone. It gave us that extra flexibility, but at the same time allowed us to work with a lot of these other customers who we've unfortunately haven't been able to capture. Um, the other real payoff with this is it's going to give us access to things like, and things are still in development, but things like cloud computing and remote access and some of those other things that are becoming very important, especially as more and more of these types of systems get overseen by the IT folks, and these are things that they demand.
All right, Bob, before I let you get out of here, one of the things that Ashley Audio has done is to kind of create an ecosystem between different parts of the audio chain. What's the biggest advantage of going with an entire Ashley ecosystem for the customer and for the dealers?
Hmm. Yeah, well, as you probably aware, Ashley, for many years was an amplifier manufacturer and of course processors, and that was sort of the core of the AV system, if you will. And we made a very active decision in the last several years to expand on that and really grow. And we've really kind of evolved from being an amplifier and processor company to being much more of a solutions provider. So Ashley Audio is very actively involved in expanding our array of products. As you see, we have new speakers, much more in development, and really developing all the pieces to the puzzle. And what that gives us basically is the ability to design and help customers with an entire system that is going to work for their application. And it sort of streamlines the process a little bit to the fact that you're dealing with one point of contact, one manufacturer. You're not chasing down, different support groups from different people, and they all kind of point fingers at each other. It gives us the ability to support our customers as well. So in the long term, we think that's a much more effective strategy. And again, we'll continue to grow and add those pieces to the puzzle as we move forward.
All right, very good. Bob Tamburri from Ashley Audio. Bob, if somebody wants to find out more about the FX series, about the upgrades to AW series speakers, or anything else about Ashley Audio, how do they do that?
If you go to our website, which is ashley.com, there's a whole page there devoted to the FX series, and there's resources you can download. We have literature, spec sheets, all kinds of resources available. So and more to come. As I mentioned, we'll be developing speaker libraries for that, so those will all be uploadable. We have them already for many of our other products, but those are in development for FX series. So that'll be all available on the FX page. There will be there's applications, and we'll be designing additional applications, sort of ideas, ways in which people can use these effectively. So if they're looking for, gee, what do I use for a small bar, or what do I use for a church or school, and we'll have this all laid out for them so they get a much better idea of how to use these products in those types of venues. So all there on our website, and of course, you can contact your local representative, but and that's also information that they can find there on our website. And our Ashley folks are standing by to help. If you have any questions, our support team is wonderful. They'll be here to help you out with design ideas and helping you troubleshoot or any of that kind of technical stuff. So.
All right, very good. Thanks so much, Bob Tamburri again from Ashley Audio. Again, there's no E in Ashley, so it's ASHLY.com. For us, for SCN, you can go by our website, avnetwork.com, and find more tech talks at avnetwork.com.